Welcome to the Floral Elements Design Studio. Today we're going to create a phalaenopsis orchid structure, so come on in and join me. Phalaenopsis is one of the most readily available orchid out there on the market. You can find it anywhere, in a grocery store, a Trader Joe's, a home improvement store. They're so available at your fingertips. It's almost kind of ridiculous. But because it's available to you and it's not an exclusive item to the florist anymore, I want to show you how you can step it up by 100 notches. So we're going to grab, I've got this really cool, fun, modern planter, and then I grabbed some sticks at IKEA. So we have some white sticks, and I have two orchids. So I have one that's a little cascading, and it's a double, and then I have a smaller one that I've already made up, and we'll show you. So we're going to actually use a Japanese technique, which is called Kokodama, and this technique is just wrapping. You can choose to use sheet moss or something really fun that I found the other day when I bought a couple orchids, was this coconut husk. And so we're going to actually use that because it gives just a little bit more contemporary look, which I love. And we're going to do a black and white theme. So I am actually, one of the things that we have to do when we do this is make sure that this part with the moss and the roots is actually fully soaked. That way you know when to water again. So everything's on the same playing field. My smaller one is already done, so while we are working on our structure, I'm going to actually soak this in some water. So don't get too scared, but I'm just going to lay it down, and it might move and shift when it actually starts saturated. So inside my planter, I actually cut a disc already out of just green foam, and then I'm actually going to add another one because this perfectly fits. This one actually has like 2 layers, so it perfectly fits inside of that smaller design area there. And I don't want it to be completely empty because I want some actual weight to hold up 2 orchids plus a couple the sticks and the actual height that we're going to be building on. So I found one of these perfect little foam discs at the dollar store, and guess what? Ta-da! Abracadabra, it works. Alright, so we're just going to push that right down. I cut this one, and it's pretty thick. You might not need something this thick, but I had this sheet available, and it worked really well. If you're going to plant plants on top of this, you might want something just a tad bit smaller, and you could use that bottom disc for all of your grounding of your stakes. But mine, I still have a little bit of room on top, so it's okay if I'm going to plant maybe some succulents or things on top that won't grow so fast and try to get through to that styrofoam underneath. So the next thing we're going to do is grab our sticks and some zip ties. I just have these really small ones that I buy in massive bags off of Amazon, or you could go to any local hardware store and grab them. And so I'm going to take a couple out so I have them ready in hand. I also have a small clippers. These are Ohanas. They're great for everything. And for those of you afraid of knives or don't know how to use them, grab a pair of these because they're amazing. Just don't cut wire with them. Just flowers, a little bit of plastic and wood. That's it, because that keeps them super sharp. All right. So when we use this, it has a little bit of bend to it, so we just have to watch out we don't break it. I only have X amount of height because that's it. So I want that tip at the top, and if that makes sense. So I'm going to go all the way through and try to get to the bottom of this, because then I have a little bit of leverage. And I know I have security once these orchids go on there, because they're going to get heavy. So I want to make sure I have at least 3 planted all the way to the very bottom here. And when I put some of my stones and dirt on, it should just be really solid. So we're going to add probably about 6 of these in varying heights. And we're going to hold on to these because we're going to need those for stability. Okay. I'm going to do this as quickly as possible because this noise is one end. So you just got to watch these curves so that we're not going too far out. We kind of want like a tower, so it's nice and sleek and modern. And some of these will pull in when we do the actual binding, like when we crisscross to give it actual stability. So it will move just a slight bit. And I'm not being too selective. They're just kind of intertwining with each other. Let's do 2 more, maybe a couple shorter. If you were doing smaller plants that don't need so much support, you might be able to get away with like 4 of these, and then just use your bracts here for support. Your support wood. Alright, here we go. So these are uprights. Now we're going to do our crossbars. And so every point where it feels like way too wobbly, we are going to insert some of these. And so we're just going to take a zip tie. We're going to put it on a cross point where there's a nice gap that kind of fits, and there should be an overhang just by a little bit. And you're going to zip tie on a cross. So it's going to, one's up, one's down, and you're going to go on the cross there so that it has the most support. Give it a good tug. You can leave these on. It's a personal choice. I personally like them because it adds like just another element of texture and line. But if you are like, no way, lady, it's so distracting, just clip them off when you're completely done. Just run through and do a bunch of clippings. Not a big deal. It's a personal thing. So we're just going to keep doing this until we get a really solid frame. And that way we can start working with our orchids. So I'm going to finish this up, and then we will come back and join us for a little bit more. All right, so 1 minute. So welcome back. We're gonna try to finish up our structure. So as you can see, this took me about 20 minutes to finish. Being that I've done this 1 or 2 times, it's a little bit faster for me. But I put lots of support in here because I kind of did a little test with the orchid, and it's pretty heavy and substantial when these are pretty light. So we're gonna put this off to the side, and you can see how light this is. We're gonna put that off to the side for just a little bit, and this is what we are going to create, which is called the Kokodama technique. So it's just a little ball basically wrapping up, and so none of the roots are exposed. Did you know that orchid plants are actually air plants? They actually sit just like this in trees. They sit in all the nooks and crannies, and they have the canopy above them, so they're shaded, and they like lower light, but they thrive off of all that humidity and rain. And so the air roots actually capture that and pull it in. So when we put them in dirt, that's why a lot of them rot and they die out. But this way, with the coconut, it has a lot of air that can circulate around, and you would just submerge this when it's ready for a drink. And a lot of times you can tell by the leaves when they're ready for a drink. You know, they'll be very floppy and sometimes they get really veiny inside of there. So that means they're like super thirsty. So we want to keep them watered. So you would just do what I did the first time and put that in a glass of water, or sorry, any container, submerge it, let it dry, drip dry a little bit inside a sink or on a towel, and then you'd put it back in your structure. All right, so let's make one of these and then we're gonna put them up on our structure. So we're gonna do this with the really large one. Just make sure that you keep the support stakes on until we're ready to put them inside of the actual frame, because these are not that, you know, they're so long that they will probably snap off if we kind of wiggle them around a little too much. So we're gonna take this game with this one, and all we're gonna do, set that down, is this, we're gonna bend this out just a little bit to make it a little bit rounder, where these are, you know, very, very straight at the moment. And we're gonna make sure we got some movement there, so we can make it a little rounder also. My stake is poking me, so I'm just gonna give that a little bit of a tug to pull up so that it's not gonna stick through the bottom of our coconut. And we're gonna pop that in, and then we're gonna kind of ball it around. And I'm being gentle, even though it looks like I'm being rough. And I chose to use this fuzzy wool, so we're gonna take that. I'm gonna put like a little pigtail around my finger here and hold on, and then we're just gonna kind of do like a zigzag all the way around to capture all those sides and keep it actually as a ball shape. So we're gonna move that. I kind of feel like we should have the song playing, The Lime and the Coconut, to celebrate our design here. But we just don't want to lose that little piece. I call it my little piggy tail or dog tail. And just keep going around, making a pattern, whatever you choose. And we just want to catch all of these little bulbous shapes that try to stick out on us. So that's just a little bit of perfection in that crazy world we call Mother Nature. Okay, once we have, it looks like pretty secure, we're gonna try to find the end that we had our little pigtail. I'm gonna place that in there because it still fits, and I'm just gonna do a knot. So if you ever had to take this apart, you would be doing a lot of cutting probably to pull this all apart like a fishnet, pretty much. Do that. I'm just gonna give it a clip real close. And then what I did on the opposite one is, just because we are using the theme black and white, and I just wanted something a little bit sturdier to keep this on, and a little bling. Even though black is not very blingy, it does give it something else where people would look inside and go, what is that? You know, so this is just black bullion wire. It's just a metal wire that has like a little crimp in it, and it's really fun to work with. You can find this in like the jewelry portion of Michael's and other areas that sell jewelry wire. Sometimes you can find it on Amazon, but it's useful for many, many things. I'm just gonna give it one, kind of a couple wraps around in different patterns, zigzag it. So I have like an even consistency. And then I'm gonna find, again, my end. This time I was on the back. And I'm just gonna knot it off. Big deal. All right. So, no wire clippers. And then we're gonna take our structure. Sorry, before we do that, our structure is extremely wobbly. So I have some, this is fish gravel, just from the pet store. And I use this because it looks super cool. And you can decide if you want to plant, like this would be kind of cute, to put some aloes in here to plant them up. So I might do that later, but for right now, I really need some weight at the bottom here. So I'm gonna dump this in on top. One, it gives me that massive contrast, you know, black and white. There's no bigger contrast than that, right? And then now, this is totally stable inside of here. I'm just gonna move it, and then I always do this. Kind of evens it out, shakes them into place, give them a couple smacks on the side, and voila! We have a really good structure to work with. And now we've got the weight, it's not wiggling around on me, it's not gonna fall forward. And so we're gonna take this, and I kind of was eyeballing this earlier, and I left these two open here, just in case these are so long that I have to kind of come up and out. And I think I am going to do that. I'm going to be so careful not to touch those petals or bruise them or tear, because this one has like a little hook on it. And I got to watch out for these zip ties, because they can act like little knives. And so if you don't want to challenge yourself with this when you have to water this poor baby, you can either use a little squeeze bottle, so this actually has water that squeezes out, or, you know, some people are very successful with this ice cube trick. I am not, so I like the submerge method, or, you know, use something like that. So I'm gonna pop this in here, and yep, it fits right inside of here. We got a little something to support there. And I think I'm just missing a back support here. So I'm cut a couple extra pieces, and I'm gonna insert one or two of those. Actually, it's sitting pretty good. So I'm gonna add just this one back here, so that it doesn't try to pop out on me. Okay. So you might ask, why create more difficult tasks for yourself? You know, sometimes there's just not enough creative ideas with orchids. You know, we've gotten very stagnant to receive this little ceramic pot, and you know, for $20 or whatever it is, you know, as a business owner, I needed something more exciting, you know, to send out to my customers. And yeah, there's a lot of labor involved in it, but the reactions that I've received and the faces that I get to see when I go and deliver something like this is just like, whoa, that's for me, you know, and of course it's for you, you know. So my line kind of drifts off a little bit there with that orchid, so I'm just gonna pull him in, and I'm gonna try to rotate this here. There we go. Now he's happy. And I have some of the zip ties that are sitting inside my orchid blossoms, and I don't want that at all. So I don't want them to grow or slice there. And so I'm just gonna move that. This looks super cool from this angle. Alright, so how does that look? And then we gotta find a home for our smaller one. So we've got this larger one dangling there, and now we've got all this negative space in between, so we can find a home for the second one. And I'm kind of thinking it should go somewhere in here. Too high. This is always the fun part, is trying to find a little home. There we go. Oh, too high. So it's very difficult when you've got orchids this long to try to find another home for one of these. So maybe this can be our front, and then we could have this one on the back side. So now, this one fits in perfect. It's something I can water, but I just have to create like a nest at the bottom here to cradle it. So we're just gonna add some sticks so that it doesn't fall through. And I might do that while I don't have these dangling in the air so I don't lose any money while I'm doing this. We're just gonna pop that there. We're gonna add a couple more of these. And thanks for hanging out with me. So we teach classes like this all the time. And if you want to get a bunch of girls together, absolutely! You know, come and join us. Have some fun. Or we can come to you. Not a big deal. Alright, I'm going to add one. And then I think I'm going to add one up the back here because there was a spot where he could actually sneak out. So we're going to add two with the zip ties. So zip ties get a little, you have to get used to them because they like to slip right out of your hands. And being that they're so tiny, you know, they're tricky. So just have a little bit of patience when you first start working with them. Okay, I think that's all we need. Let's try again. I'm going to take this. He's going to go your way, and I'm going to pop him in through this. There's like a little triangle back here. That's really perfect. There we go. Now he's got a little nest to sit in. I could take these sticks off and kind of separate these apart because there is a support system here, or I could get that in between there. But for right now, we're going to leave it as is. Oops, I shouldn't have touched it. Okay. So, yeah, and you can always take your zip tie or a support or one of these little hair clips. Like this one does not need a hair clip there. And so we could take this and just clip that on as a little support too. It doesn't have to be zip ties that can cut in. Alright, so there's our finished piece. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us today at the Flora Elements Design Studio, and I hope to see you very soon, and we hope spring is on its way also. See ya.